Number 1. Carly Gregg. Carly Gregg was just 14 years old when she shocked her entire community in Brandon, Mississippi. On March 19, 2024, she turned her family home into a crime scene after a heated argument with her mother, Ashley Smiley, a 40-year-old high school math teacher. That morning, Ashley had confronted Carly about using substances she wasn't supposed to. What started as a normal mother-daughter disagreement quickly escalated. Carly, angry and emotional, went to the bedroom, picked up a firearm, and shot her mother dead. What made this act even more disturbing was what followed next. Instead of calling for help, Carly invited a friend over to the house and showed her mother's lifeless body as if it were nothing. But the tragedy didn't end there. Carly then texted her stepfather, Heath Smiley, pretending everything was normal, just to lure him back home. When he arrived, she aimed the gun again, shooting him in the shoulder. Miraculously, Heath survived and managed to disarm her before things got even worse. When police arrived, they found a family destroyed. During her trial, Carly's defense argued that she suffered from mental health problems, including depression and hearing voices. They tried to convince the court that she didn't fully understand what she was doing. However, the evidence against her was overwhelming. After 4.5 days of trial, the jury found her guilty of murder. The judge handed down a life sentence without the possibility of parole, meaning Carly will spend the rest of her life behind bars. Her case became one of the most shocking examples of teen violence in Mississippi, sparking debates about mental illness, parenting, and how easily young people can access firearms. What made this story stand out wasn't just the brutality of the act, but the calmness Carly showed afterward. To shoot your own mother, then casually invite a friend over, and later plan to ambush your stepfather, it showed a level of coldness most adults can't even comprehend. The tragedy also left behind a surviving stepfather who not only lost his wife, but had to watch the justice system take away the child he helped raise. It was a story of pain, confusion, and broken trust, one that reminded everyone that sometimes evil can come from the most unexpected places. Number 2. Isabella Guzman. In August 2013, the quiet suburb of Aurora, Colorado, became the scene of one of the most disturbing family murders in modern U.S. history. The killer was Isabella Guzman, an 18-year-old whose growing hatred toward her mother ended in a shocking act of violence. Isabella's relationship with her mother, Yoon Hoy, had been troubled for years. Friends and relatives said the two constantly fought, and as Isabella grew older, her anger became uncontrollable. Things reached a breaking point when Yoon contacted the police, asking for help because her daughter had become increasingly threatening. It was a desperate cry for help, but help came too late. On the day of the murder, Isabella sent her mother an email with a chilling message: "You will pay." That night, while Yoon was taking a shower, her husband, Isabella's stepfather, Ryan Hoy, heard her screaming his name. He rushed upstairs but found the bathroom door locked. He quickly called 911, then returned to find Isabella walking calmly out of the bathroom, holding a sharp object covered in blood and saying nothing. When police entered, they found Yoon Hoy stabbed 79 times. The brutality of the attack shocked everyone. It wasn't a moment of rage, it was overkill. Immediately after, Isabella ran away from the house but was captured the next day. During her trial, Isabella pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. Psychiatric evaluations revealed she suffered from schizophrenia and severe delusions. Doctors said she believed her mother was not her real mother, but an imposter sent to harm her. In 2014, the court accepted her insanity plea, and Isabella was sent to the Colorado Mental Health Institute instead of prison. Over the years, Isabella's case became widely known online. Her courtroom photos and eerie calmness spread across social media, turning her into a strange internet figure. In 2020, she requested release, claiming her mental health had improved. But the court denied her plea, stating that she still posed a public safety risk. What makes Isabella's story so haunting is how it blurs the line between madness and murder. Was she an evil killer or a broken mind that lost touch with reality? Her mother tried to save her, reaching out for help, but in the end, that love and concern cost her life. Isabella's story stands as a painful reminder that untreated mental illness can become deadly, especially when ignored by those who should act. Behind every horrific headline, there's often a deeper story of warning signs, neglect, and cries for help that were never answered. Number 3. Sierra Halseth. In April 2021, a gruesome discovery inside a Las Vegas garage revealed a crime so brutal it stunned the entire city. The killer was 16-year-old Sierra Halseth, a high school girl who, together with her 18-year-old boyfriend, Aaron Guerrero, murdered her own father, Daniel Halseth. Their story began like many teenage romances, intense, emotional, and defiant. The two started dating in June 2020, but both sets of parents disapproved of their relationship. They believed the teens were becoming reckless and even planning to run away together. When their parents discovered the plan, they tried to stop them. But instead of accepting the decision, Sierra and Aaron made a horrifying choice. They decided to kill her father. On April 9, 2021, relatives became worried after Daniel stopped responding to calls and messages. When police arrived at his Las Vegas home, they made a horrific discovery. Daniel's body was found in the garage, covered in blood. He had been stabbed and slashed more than 70 times. The scene was so violent that even experienced investigators were shaken. Police quickly uncovered the evidence. They found receipts for saws and gloves used in the crime, as well as surveillance footage of the couple using Daniel's debit card to make purchases after his death. It was clear. They had planned everything. After the killing, Sierra and Aaron fled Nevada, driving Daniel's car towards Salt Lake City, Utah. But their run didn't last long. Police tracked them down after finding that Sierra's phone was used to buy train tickets. When they were arrested, investigators found something chilling, a video recorded after the murder. In it, the couple laughed and joked about what they had done, showing no remorse whatsoever.
I don't know what to say.
Welcome back to our YouTube channel. After
Day
murdering, Day 3 after murdering somebody.
Whoa! Don't put that on the camera.
Because Sierra was still a minor, she couldn't face the death penalty. But both she and Aaron were charged as adults. In October 2022, they were sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 22 years. Their case became infamous not only because of the brutality, but because of their attitude. It showed how a teenage romance, when mixed with obsession and rebellion, could spiral into something horrifying. These weren't two cold-blooded career criminals. They were kids who turned a fantasy into a nightmare. Many people blame poor parenting, mental health issues, and toxic love. But at its core, it was a story about choices. Choices made out of defiance and darkness. Sierra and Aaron believed their love was more important than life itself. And in that belief, they destroyed it all. Number 4. Sofia Koval. On May 23, 2024, a quiet neighborhood in Lauderdale Lakes, Florida, was shaken by a crime few could even imagine. A 14-year-old girl, Sofia Koval, took the life of her own 79-year-old grandmother, the woman who had helped raise her. That afternoon, Sofia was at home alone with her grandmother, while her father was out visiting a friend. When he returned, he found a horrifying scene. His mother lying unresponsive on the floor, her body covered in bruises. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital, but it was too late. She was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. At first, Sofia claimed she had acted in self-defense. She told her father that her grandmother had scratched her and that she only hit back using a belt. But investigators quickly realized the injuries didn't match her story. The bruises were too many, too severe, and some showed marks from objects that weren't belts. As detectives pressed her, the truth started to come out. Sofia had not only beaten her grandmother with a belt, she had also used her walker, striking her again and again. When her father asked why she did it, Sofia reportedly said something that left him speechless. She was already dying. I helped her die. The medical examiner ruled the case a homicide, and Sofia was arrested. Despite her young age, she was charged as an adult with manslaughter. During court proceedings, her defense argued that she didn't fully understand the consequences of her actions. They said she had struggled emotionally, and that the relationship with her grandmother had become tense over discipline and household rules. In the end, Sofia pleaded no contest, accepting responsibility without admitting guilt. The judge sentenced her to Florida's maximum risk juvenile program for up to 3 years, followed by community supervision until she turns 21. Because she is a Ukrainian citizen, the court also ruled that she could be deported once she finishes her sentence. If she violates any part of her release, she could face up to 15 years in adult prison. This case left the community heartbroken. It raised painful questions about how anger, immaturity, and family conflict can build up behind closed doors, and how a single moment of rage can destroy generations of love. Sofia Koval's story is not one of an evil mastermind. It's a tragedy born from broken emotions and a young life that lost control. A grandmother who loved deeply is gone, and a young girl will carry that burden for the rest of her life. Number 5. Natasha Cornett. In April 1997, an 18-year-old girl from Pikeville, Kentucky, named Natasha Cornett, set out on a road trip that would end in one of the most shocking family murders in Tennessee history. What began as a rebellious journey quickly turned into a nightmare of violence and tragedy. Natasha was a troubled teenager. She grew up in poverty, struggled with mental health issues, and often described herself as a Satan worshiper. She felt rejected by her community, misunderstood by her family, and drawn toward darker beliefs. In early 1997, she gathered 5 teenage friends, all of them lost, angry, and searching for a new start. Together, they decided to leave Kentucky and head for New Orleans, hoping to escape their problems and start fresh. But halfway through their journey, everything changed. On April 6th, the group stopped at a rest area in Greenville, Tennessee. There they met a kind religious family, the Lillelid family, devout Jehovah's Witnesses, who spoke to them about faith and hope. What the family didn't know was that these teens were desperate and armed. The group wanted a better car for the trip, and the Lillelids became their target. They forced the family, parents Vidar and Delphina, and their 2 small children, into their own van at gunpoint. They drove them to a secluded rural area. Then, in cold blood, they lined the family up near a ditch. The youngest member of the group, just 14 years old, fired the shots. Vidar, Delphina, and their young daughter were killed instantly. The youngest child survived but was permanently disabled. After the killings, the teenagers abandoned their old car and fled in the Lillelids van, heading toward the Mexican border. But freedom didn't last long. Within 2 days, they were caught by police and brought back to face justice. All 6 were charged with first-degree murder. To avoid the death penalty, they accepted plea deals. Natasha, though she didn't pull the trigger, was still seen as the leader and planner of the group. The court sentenced her to 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Natasha's case has continued to attract attention because it showed how quickly youthful rebellion can twist into unimaginable violence. Many questioned how a girl from a small town, artistic, intelligent, but deeply unstable, could end up leading a group into such horror. Now, decades later, Natasha remains behind bars. She has expressed regret for what happened, saying she never meant for anyone to die. But for the Lillelid family, the damage was irreversible. 3 lives gone, 1 child forever scarred. This story stands as a chilling reminder that darkness can grow quietly in the minds of the young, and that one terrible decision can destroy countless lives. Number 6. Tess Damm. In 2007, the quiet town of Longmont, Colorado, became the center of a shocking teenage murder case that revealed the dark side of anger and manipulation. The killer was 15-year-old Tess Damm, a high school girl who convinced her boyfriend to murder her own mother. Tess lived with her mother, Linda Damm, a single parent who struggled to control her rebellious teenage daughter. Friends and neighbors described their relationship as toxic, constant shouting, disrespect, and tension that had been building for years. Tess often told friends that her mother was abusive and didn't care about her. But instead of running away, she chose a darker path. On a March night in 2007, Tess and her 17-year-old boyfriend, Brian Grove, came up with a horrifying plan. Tess told Brian she wanted her mother gone, and he agreed to help. Together with a friend named Jared Smith, they drove to Tess's house. Jared waited outside in a getaway car while Brian went in. Inside, Linda Damm was attacked in her sleep. Brian stabbed her 18 times, ending her life almost instantly. Tess, who had been part of the planning, helped hide her mother's body in the trunk of her car. For the next few days, Tess and her friends partied, using Linda's money and car as if nothing had happened. They even tried several times to bury or dispose of the body, but failed each time. The truth came out after a welfare check by police, who noticed the terrible smell coming from the car parked in the driveway. Inside, they discovered Linda's decomposing body. All 4 teens involved were arrested and charged with murder. In court, Tess pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. She told the judge that she felt trapped, controlled, and hopeless, that she just wanted her mother out of her life. The court sentenced her to 23 years in prison, while her boyfriend Brian received 40 years. In 2020, after serving just over 10 years, Tess was granted parole and released at age 28. Her early release sparked public outrage, with many arguing that she should have served her full sentence for orchestrating the killing of her own mother. Tess's story is a chilling reminder of how deep teenage resentment can run when left unchecked. What began as anger and defiance turned into manipulation and murder. Her mother, who once hoped to fix their broken bond, became the victim of her daughter's darkest emotions. Today, Tess lives quietly, away from the spotlight, but her name remains a reminder of one of Colorado's most haunting mother-daughter crimes. Number 7. Scarlett Jenkinson. In February 2023, the small English town of Colchester, Cheshire, was shattered by the murder of 16-year-old Brianna Gay, a kind, bright teenager whose life was taken by two of her own classmates. The killers were 15-year-old Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe, both fascinated by death, violence, and control. Scarlett wasn't your typical teenager. She had developed a dark obsession with serial killers, spent time on the dark web, and often spoke about wanting to kill someone just to see what it felt like. When she transferred to Birchwood Community High School, she met Brianna, who was open, friendly, and well-liked. But Scarlett's interest in Brianna grew unhealthy. She told others she wanted Brianna to always be with her, even if it meant through death. Her friend Eddie shared the same dark curiosity. He collected knives, watched violent content online, and even bought the weapon that would later be used in the killing during a trip to Bulgaria. Together, they started plotting, writing notes, exchanging messages, and practicing how they would carry out the attack. On February 11, 2023, Scarlett texted Brianna, inviting her to meet at Colchester Linear Park. Brianna thought it was just a friendly meetup, but it was a trap. Once she arrived, the pair ambushed her in a secluded area of the park. What happened next was horrifying. Brianna was stabbed more than 28 times, a brutal and deliberate act of violence. Scarlett and Eddie fled the scene, pretending nothing had happened. But the next day, police found Brianna's body and quickly identified the killers through CCTV and text messages. Both were arrested and charged with murder. During the trial, evidence revealed that Scarlett had kept diaries describing fantasies of torture and control, while Eddie had written disturbing messages about doing something exciting. Neither showed much emotion in court. Scarlett even smirked as parts of the evidence were read out. In December 2023, both were found guilty. Scarlett Jenkinson was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 22 years, while Eddie Ratcliffe received a 20-year minimum sentence. Because of their age, the judge said the case was one of the most disturbing crimes ever committed by teenagers in the UK. The murder of Brianna Gay shocked the nation, not just for its cruelty, but for its senselessness. It was a killing born out of obsession, fantasy, and complete lack of empathy. Scarlett Jenkinson's story stands as a terrifying reminder that evil doesn't always wear the face of an adult. Sometimes, it looks like an ordinary schoolgirl. Number 8. Jordan Jobson. On August 2, 2007, the streets of Walsall, North Tyneside, England, became the scene of a senseless and heartbreaking act of violence. The person responsible wasn't a hardened criminal. It was a 15-year-old girl named Jordan Jobson, under the heavy influence of alcohol and drugs. That night, a simple street fight spiraled out of control. Witnesses recalled chaos, shouting, pushing, and confusion. Among the crowd was 18-year-old Samantha Madgen, a young mother who had just given birth 2 months earlier. Samantha wasn't part of the fight. She was only trying to help, to calm things down and stop anyone from getting hurt. But her kindness met tragedy. In the middle of the commotion, Jordan, intoxicated and angry, pulled out a knife. She lunged at Samantha, stabbing her multiple times. The attack was quick, chaotic, and fatal. Samantha collapsed on the street and died before she could be saved. The news hit the community hard. A teenage mother, full of life, had been killed for no reason. And the person who did it was another teenager, lost in a haze of rage and intoxication. Jordan was arrested soon after and charged with murder. During the trial, she claimed she had been too drunk and high to know what she was doing. She insisted she never meant to kill anyone, that it was all a blur. But the evidence told a different story. Witnesses saw her wield a knife with intent, and the court concluded that despite her intoxication, she knew her actions could cause serious harm. She was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 15 years. Later, her sentence was reduced to 11 years on appeal due to her young age and lack of prior record. After serving her time, Jordan was released on license in December 2020. But her freedom didn't last long. Within just 6 months, she was recalled to prison for violating her release conditions. As of 2021, she remained in custody, awaiting a decision from the parole board about whether she could be released again. Samantha's family has never recovered from the loss. Her baby boy grew up without his mother, all because one teenager made a deadly choice while under the influence. Jordan Jobson's story stands as a painful warning that one reckless moment, one bad decision, can destroy multiple lives forever. Number 9. Charlie Ely. In April 2011, the small town of Summerfield, Florida, witnessed a horrifying crime that would haunt the community for years. At the center of it was 18-year-old Charlie Ely, a teenage girl whose home became the scene of a brutal and premeditated murder. The victim was 15-year-old Seth Jackson, a cheerful, trusting boy who thought he was meeting up with his ex-girlfriend. Instead, he walked straight into a trap. Charlie lived alone at the time and often allowed other young people to hang out at her house. It was the kind of place where troubled teens came to escape their own problems. Among them were Amber Wright, Seth's ex-girlfriend, Michael Bargo, Kyle Hooper, and Justin Soto. Together, this group conspired to kill Seth. Amber messaged Seth, pretending she wanted to talk and make peace. Seth agreed and went to Charlie's house, unaware of what was waiting for him. The moment he stepped inside, the group attacked him. He was beaten, shot multiple times, and ultimately killed. The horror didn't end there. They tried to burn his body in an attempt to cover up the crime. Police later discovered the remains and uncovered the full plan. Every detail, from the messages to the weapons, was carefully put together. Charlie Ely claimed she was forced to take part, saying the others threatened her with a gun and that she didn't have the courage to stop them. But prosecutors argued that she willingly provided her house, helped clean up afterward, and played a role in luring Seth to his death. In 2011, Charlie was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. She was just 18. Years later, in 2020, her conviction was overturned after an appeals court ruled that her legal defense had been ineffective. She agreed to a plea deal, pleading guilty to second-degree murder, and received a 10-year sentence. Having already served most of that time, she was released shortly afterward. Since her release, Charlie Ely has kept a low profile. Some believe she was manipulated and too scared to stop what happened. Others believe she knew exactly what she was doing. What's certain is that a young boy's life ended violently, and a group of teenagers destroyed their own futures in one terrible night. The murder of Seth Jackson is now remembered as one of the most chilling teen crimes in Florida, a tragedy born from jealousy, anger, and peer pressure that spiraled out of control. Number 10. Cassandra Bjorge. In April 2017, the quiet suburban town of Lawrenceville, Georgia, became the focus of a nightmare that shocked even the most hardened detectives. At the center of it was 17-year-old Cassandra Bjorge, a high school girl who, alongside her 19-year-old boyfriend Johnny Ryder, committed one of the most disturbing family murders in Georgia's history. Cassandra had been living with her grandparents, Randall and Wendy Bjorge, who were trying to give her a stable home after years of family struggles. They cared deeply for her and wanted to help her get back on track. But behind closed doors, Cassandra had grown resentful. She wanted freedom, and her grandparents' rules became a burden. So, one night in April, Cassandra and Johnny decided to end it, brutally. They waited for the lights in the house to go out, then entered the home and attacked the elderly couple while they slept. The pair beat them with a baseball bat, then used a knife to finish the job. It was an unprovoked and calculated act of violence. Afterward, instead of panicking or feeling guilt, they sealed off the room with caulk to block the smell and continued to live in the house. For almost a week, Cassandra and Johnny hosted friends and parties, laughing, eating, and pretending nothing had happened, while the bodies of her grandparents lay lifeless in the next room. Their secret unraveled after relatives became worried when Randall and Wendy stopped answering calls. Police came for a welfare check, and that's when they made the horrific discovery. The elderly couple had been dead for days. Cassandra and Johnny were gone. Authorities traced the couple to a nearby apartment where they were hiding. Both were arrested and later confessed to the killings. Investigators found that Cassandra and Johnny had planned the murders days in advance, even discussing how they would dispose of the bodies. In February 2018, both pleaded guilty to murder and aggravated assault. The judge sentenced them each to 2 consecutive life terms, with the possibility of parole after 60 years, meaning Cassandra will likely spend the rest of her life in prison. This case struck a deep nerve across the state. It wasn't just the brutality of the crime, it was the coldness. How could a young girl kill the very people who had taken her in, who had loved and cared for her. Cassandra's story is a chilling portrait of manipulation and moral collapse, a teenager who traded family and kindness for chaos and control. Her grandparents' home, once a place of love, became her crime scene. And in the end, all that remains is a haunting silence where laughter and life used to be.